All right, we got Faramir and the Triumph of Humility from Master Samwise. All right, let me see.
If you ask a group of Tolkien enthusiasts, even those who deeply love Peter Jackson's movies, what their least favorite part of the films was, there's a decent chance most of them will give you a one word answer.
The Eagles. The Eagles. That's what everyone says. That was the worst part of the movie. Why didn't they ride the Eagles? That's it.
Faramir.
No.
I'm sorry, that's a ridiculous thing to say. There's absolutely no way people who enjoy reading Tolkien that much would ever keep their responses to a single word. You're much more likely to get a full speech that sounds like it has been fully prepared, but really has just been given over and over again because these fans of the books feel so passionately about their beloved novel and the characters within. So what is it about Jackson's Faramir that struck a nerve with devoted readers of Lord of the Rings? Why do they care so much about a character who appears in only a few scenes and has no real meaningful impact on the plot? Did Faramir suffer character assassination along the lines of Luke Skywalker or Indiana Jones? Was he written poorly in some way? Is he an insufferable character who would not fit into Tolkien's world? The answer to those latter three questions, you may be surprised to know, is not an unqualified yes, and in most cases is a solid no. Jackson's Faramir is far from poorly written, and the themes surrounding his brief character arc are wholly in line with those of the book. I mean, I just made a
Okay, so I have watched the Lord of the Rings movies many times, over and over again. I've watched the extended editions over and over again, many times. But I have yet to read the books. I have them on my little Kindle, but I just haven't gotten around to reading them yet. So I thought Faramir was pretty well written. I don't know what he was like in the books yet, but I didn't think he was like the worst part of the movie. To me, he felt like little brother trying to like always standing in the shadow of Boromir. I mean, that's what Peter Jackson gave off the vibe. Anyway, he was trying to, whenever he had to like take his men and ride off from what was it Minas Tirith to that other city or whatever. It's like you're probably gonna lose that. You're probably gonna die. But he's like, Father, if I come back, treat me with more respect. And the dad's like, it won't. It'll be the manner of how you return, or some bullshit like that. It's like Jesus Christ, your kid's about to fucking willingly go off and die, and you're still not satisfied. Like, I mean, if that's what he was, I mean, that's what Peter Jackson was painting. Like, the that little the throne watchover guy of Minas Tirith or whatever. I forgot his name. He was a good bad guy. He had his favorite son Boromir. He's like, oh, you're gonna be the caretaker of Minas Tirith when I die, and not so much your little brother. And little brother was always trying to live up to his dad's expectations.
video about how incredible Boromir's arc is, in no small part because he falls to temptation, and then because he turns away from his error and seeks redemption. If there's one thing we know about the One Ring, it is that the ring poses an enormous temptation for any who behold it. Why would we be surprised that Jackson's Faramir decides to take the ring to Minas Tirith and present his father with a mighty gift? Who among us could judge this captain of men for seeking to wield the strength that would save his people? Would we do any better? Probably not, but therein lies the main problem of this adaptation. Peter Jackson understood the value of a good character arc. His version of Theoden portrays a remarkable journey from despair to hope, as the monarch of Rohan discovers what it
The character arcs in Lord of the Rings are so much better and happen in way less time than any modern movie or TV show. It doesn't matter how long the episodes are. It doesn't matter how many episodes there are. All the characters in Lord of the Rings in, let's just say the default is now the extended edition, is about, what is it, like 4 hours, like a chunk, more or less. Like in the 12 hours of Lord of the Rings, every character has a better character arc in that 12 hours than so much of the modern day garbage.
truly means to be a king. Jackson's interpretation of Faramir likewise has a sensible and meaningful arc. He discovers that Frodo carries the One Ring, falls prey to its allure and its promise of power, resolves to take the ring to Gondor, but then has his mind changed after Sam tells him of Boromir's ring-induced madness.
You want to know why your brother died? He tried to take the ring from Frodo, after swearing an oath to protect him.
And after he hears Sam's famous speech about hoping against hope.
Bro, like every time I see some of these scenes where these guys are crying and shit, that makes me want to cry too. Like, goddamn.
And that good will prevail over evil.
And when the sun shines, it'll shine out the clearer.
So in that sense, Faramir does succeed ultimately where Boromir failed, but only after a milder fall of his own. In this, Jackson missed the point of Faramir, who is supposed to stand in stark contrast to Boromir. In the book, Faramir says to Frodo, in reference to Isildur's Bane, the nature of which is not known to him at the time, "I would not take this thing, if it lay by the highway, not were Minas Tirith falling in ruin, and I alone could save her, so using the weapon of the Dark Lord for her good and my glory."
Oh. Okay, now I get it. Just with this, like, these couple sentences right here, I get it. He is literally the opposite. In the book, he swears he would never stoop so low as to using the tool of the Dark Lord for anything, even if that meant like the means justify the end type of deal. Because book Faramir is that much more virtuous than movie Faramir. Okay. I don't know. I wonder what were the reasons that Peter Jackson like made, or what did he say? Like, well, I don't know if he even like gave any reasons, like why he changed this, aspect of Faramir. I'd be curious to hear.
This is virtue. When we talk about established, cultivated virtue, we refer to someone acting as Faramir does in this moment. Someone who does not hesitate in his refusal of temptation. Characters who struggle, falter, fail, and...
You know what I think? I think he did it because he thought that book Faramir is too much Boy Scout, too much Superman. That's what I think. It was too... you could have predicted that, like, the loyal son of... like Minas Tirith, bro, and this the brother of Faramir, or the brother of Boromir, they all kind of have like more or less the same personalities of like virtuous good guy hero knight type of deal, and there wasn't any I don't know, a diversity of character behavior. So I think that might have been the reason. I think if I were to guess. Whether or not that was like the right decision, again, this is like a this versus that. Like people that only saw the movies thought it was fine, but people that read the books first, then saw the movies, it's like, well, that's not how it happened. The books were better. You hear that all the time. I don't really know if there's a right or wrong decision. Like, was this a good or bad decision to make him less Boy Scouty and more like the means justify the end?
Have to be redeemed.
Or the end justifies the means? Yeah.
Are incredible examples, and we absolutely need them, but we also need characters further along that road of growth. Ones who have perhaps failed in their own way, or ones who have, through whatever means, developed superior strength of character. These paragons of virtue aren't often placed at the center of a given story, because their lack of need for growth makes them more of a challenge to write in a compelling fashion. It's not at all impossible to pull off.
Yeah, so like, since, I mean, I don't know how the books went with Faramir, like, from like his initial introduction, was he always a virtuous person versus he had some shit happen and then the reader got to read him become virtuous? Because this is the same issue with Star Wars. So much shit happened in between each movie that so many like key things happened off screen that the movie itself, once you get time to like watch the movie, it's like you're seeing the finality of certain things. You know, like Luke Skywalker falling from a grace, and like he taught, like after, what was it? He killed uh after he killed, or not, he didn't kill, but after Vader threw Palpatine over the in that big deep pit, then he chopped off his what was it, his dad's arm, like his arm or other arm or some shit. I forgot what happened. I haven't seen that episode of Star Wars in a while. And then he's holding his dad, and he's like, "Oh shit, I'm the last Jedi." And then from that movie to the next one, so much shit happened. It's like he grew into like old man Luke Skywalker. So much shit happened. Like he trained a bunch of people, and then people like were failing him, and what else? What was it? Kylo Ren. It was like you have to. The entire initial character growth of Kylo Ren was like done off screen, and there's so much things to be left assumed or implied that you didn't even get to see it. So maybe I think that's what Peter Jackson was trying to do. He wanted to show you the character growth of Faramir versus like the book version of Faramir, where he was like always virtuous and seemingly kind of boring.
Maximus and Gladiator and Steve Rogers in Captain America and the Winter Soldier are two examples of men who don't grow significantly in wisdom, humility, or prudence, but who are faced with other challenges and have to adapt their viewpoint on certain issues. But for the most part, paragons of virtue tend to serve best as secondary characters. They are often advisors such as Gandalf, Iroh, and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Faramir doesn't really fit that role. He doesn't have much of an impact on Frodo's journey at all. The main piece of advice he offers is to not follow Gollum to Cirith Ungol, which Sam and Frodo do anyway because what choice do they have? So what is the point of Faramir then? When I said a minute ago that Jackson missed the point, I did not mean that he shot wide of the target entirely, but rather that he failed to hit the bullseye. Quite on purpose, as it turns out. When interviewed about the changes made to the Ranger Captain, Jackson explained, "We've spent a lot of time in the last film and in this one to establish this ring is incredibly powerful. Then to suddenly come to a character that says, oh, I'm not interested in that. To suddenly go against everything that we've established ourselves is sort of going against our own rules.
Yeah.
We certainly acknowledge that Faramir should not do what Boromir did, and that he ultimately has the strength to say, no, you go on your own way, and I understand. We wanted to make it slightly harder, to have a little more tension than there was in the book."
More tension. Okay. Because I'm going back and rethinking, because, well, if he didn't change Boromir, like Boromir was like that in the book, like he had to like this internal struggle of like, oh shit, I'm close to the ring, it's out there, I could just take it. If Boromir had that character arc, okay, that's established for him, but then there's like a diet version in the movie for Faramir, when Faramir in the book was supposed to be the virtuous one. So they're kind of like contrasting like ideals in the book, whereas in the movie they are more or less the same person. They're both willing to the end justifies the means type of deal. But Boromir was like about ready to kill Frodo, where Faramir just like captured him. He's like, ah, gotcha. Eh. And he's like, okay. And then he had to be convinced to be like, okay, maybe we shouldn't take it.
I see where Jackson was coming from here, but I definitely do not agree with his line of thinking. If you want to explain how Faramir could resist the ring where Boromir could not, a very simple explanation would be that Faramir had only just stepped into its presence, whereas Boromir had witnessed it at the Council of Elrond.
Oh yeah, because isn't that like a side effect, or like a power or a thing that happens with the One Ring? The longer you are in its presence, unless you're no. The longer you're in its presence, the more you want it for yourself.
Gazed upon it for hours and had been traveling alongside the ring bearer for months. Certainly, were Faramir to take the ring, he would not be able to resist it. Even if he were to allow himself to consider taking the ring, he might fall to that temptation. But he doesn't.
Yeah.
Faramir refuses the temptation outright.
But then the question becomes, if Faramir were to spend more time with the ring, or with Frodo in the ring, would Faramir do the same thing as Boromir did? I mean, if you think about it logically, he should have.
Before it can establish the smallest beachhead within his mind. He tells Frodo, "Even if I were such a man as to desire this thing, and even though I knew not clearly what this thing was when I spoke, still I should take those words as a vow and be held by them. But I am not such a man. Or I am wise enough to know that there are some perils from which a man must flee." Faramir doesn't triumph over the ring. He doesn't stare down the will of Sauron and win.
Yeah, he just ignores it. He's like, I know where this is going, and then does a 180. That's what he does. He's like, if I spend more time with this shit, I'm gonna do some bad shit. So in order to combat that, he's like, what do I gotta do? I gotta just not be here. Okay? And he dips.
He simply refuses to play the game because he knows he wouldn't win. That is the virtue of humility, of knowing yourself, your abilities, and your limits. If we look at everyone whom the ring tempts, they are all tempted to some form of grandeur. Even Sam is given a vision of all of Mordor transformed into an enormous garden. And how does he resist that temptation? You guessed it, through humility. All of Mordor.
Okay, this is Sam. Wait.
Of knowing yourself, your abilities, and your limits. If we look at everyone whom the ring tempts, they are all tempted to some form of grandeur. Even Sam is given...
Yeah, because Samwise was with Frodo the whole damn time. So he was able to resist it. Frodo was able to resist it. That shit's fucking just jingling there right on his chest. Okay, so this is apparently Samwise falling prey to the temptations of the ring, I take it. So let me see. Wild fantasies arose in his mind. Okay, right off the rip. And he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to the overthrow of Barad-dûr. And then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command the Vale of Gorgoroth, bro, that's a band. The Vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers in the trees and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. Oh, okay. So this entire paragraph is just him like fantasizing the ring, like reaching out its tendrils of like temptations and like, just put me on your hand and all this could be yours. So I think it's good that we see like the tendrils and the temptations that the ring causes people to do, and it just shows you what everybody just wants. Like, I just want this all to go away. Like, God damn it. The Vale of Gorgoroth. Bro, for me, this is a black metal band. Jesus.
Given a vision of all of Mordor transformed into an enormous
I wonder if that's where they got their name from Lord of the Rings.
garden. And how does he resist that temptation? You guessed it, through humility, through proclaiming that his own simple gardens worked.
Okay. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due. Not a garden swollen to a realm, his own hands to use, not the hands of others to command.
By his own hands would be enough for him. Faramir refusing outright the thought of taking the One Ring wouldn't be a denial of the ring's incredible tempting power, it would be an acknowledgement of it. That is what Jackson missed. Let me put it this way. Let's say I have a crippling addiction to Oreos. Double stuff, obviously. I'm not insane. If I am working to purge...
Bro, did you know there is a level above double stuffed? There's a thing for Oreos called mega stuffed. Like, what the hell? This is the super size me of Oreos. What are we doing?
myself of this vice of chocolatey, creamy gluttony and grow in the virtue of moderation, would my best option be to have a package of Oreos sitting open on my desk while I work, so as to strengthen my resolve through perpetual trial? As amazing as having 24 access to Oreos sounds, that would obviously be a terrible idea, because you know those 3 rows of cookies would be empty within a day.
Yeah.
Okay, so should I instead keep the Oreos in the kitchen cupboard? No, I shouldn't have them in the house at all. As a matter of fact, I should probably have my wife do all the grocery shopping so that I'm not tempted to wander down the cookie aisle and pick up a pack or 3.
Yeah, but what that implies is that you have no self-control.
I'm sure she won't mind. In doing so, I am not saying Oreos have no power over me, but rather, I know if I let myself, I would drown in a shower of chocolate cookie crumbs. This is exactly Faramir's attitude. This is why he tells Frodo, I do not wish to see it, or touch it, or know more of it than I know, which is enough.
I mean, at least these characters know what they do know and know what they don't know. So there is that type of person where if they just see food, they're just like, I gotta, they just take that shit. And then there's another type of person where they're just like content, like they could live in a house with like a bunch of cookies, cakes, and all that shit, but they could eat everything in modesty. You know, maybe they'll have like a little 1 or 2 cookies here and there. You know, maybe they'll have like a slice of cake what's the word? Did I say it right? Modest? Whatever. Like, there is the glutton type of person and there is the sensible type of person. And the gluttonous type of person should at least know they are a glutton. And in that case, they can make a decision to be gluttonous or just completely ignore the thing that they are gluttonous about. The sensible person can acknowledge their cravings, have the food in the house, and just be able to control themselves. I don't really know if like one person's better than the other, or one is more interesting, or whatnot.
Lest peril perchance waylay me, and I fall lower in the test than Frodo, son of Drogo. Faramir freely admits the existence of his own weakness and vulnerability. He is not Tom Bombadil, who could act as if the ring was a child's plaything that had no effect on him whatsoever, because it didn't. Faramir clearly knows that if he took the ring, if he even considered taking the ring, he would fail. Ergo, he has to make the very idea of using the ring as a weapon of Gondor so preposterous that it is basically a joke. You may remember this line from the movie.
Chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality.
You might be surprised to know that those words are lifted straight from the pages of the book. And here in the wild,
And that's just another reason why the Lord of the Rings trilogy is like one of, if not the GOATs of movies, all right? Every motherfucker had a copy of the book and were turning on to the pages of the scene that they were doing that day. All right. Nobody had an agenda. Nobody was an activist. Nobody didn't read the source material and just imprinted their own bullshit on the IP that nobody cared about. Okay. Everybody had a copy of the book and returned to the page that the scene that they were doing. Okay. That's not tough. All right. You could spend like, what does it cost to do like a full day of shooting, or like how many people are involved? Like a couple hundred. Get like 200 books of whatever IP you're doing. Go on Amazon, go get some paperback books and be like, here, just read this. Okay. Turn to page 56. We're doing this. And yeah, you guys better be on your A game. All right. There. That's not hard.
Have you 2 halflings and a host of men at my call, and the ring of rings. A pretty stroke of fortune, a chance for Faramir, Captain of Gondor, to show his quality. Upon reading that, you might think that Jackson's Faramir is in fact a faithful adaptation, but only until you reach the end of the next paragraph. Faramir sat down again in his chair and began to laugh quietly. He was making a joke. The words said in all seriousness in the movie are quite literally a joke in the book. Faramir
Oh.
mocks the very idea of achieving personal glory through capturing and using the One Ring. And in that mockery is what C.S. Lewis would call a sense of humor and proportion. In his book, The Screwtape Letters, Lewis writes from the perspective of an elder demon mentoring a younger fiend who is tasked with leading a human to damnation. In the passage to which I am referring, Screwtape advises his nephew Wormwood to attempt to draw his subject's attention to the fact that, in a given moment, he is being humble, and to feel pride at his own humility, and then should the human realize this prideful urge and humble himself yet again, repeat the cycle of smug self-satisfaction. But don't try this too long, for fear you awaken his sense of humor and proportion, in which case he will merely laugh at you and go to bed. Faramir was able to laugh at the thought of temptation, at the pride he may have felt at his successful resistance of its lure, and at the idea that he could be any more than he is. Again, this is true humility, genuine acknowledgement of one's place in the world, the very virtue against which Screwtape is warning Wormwood in that passage. By this virtue, as by all the others, the enemy wants to turn man's attention away from self to him and to the man's neighbors. Faramir is not interested in his own gain, nor in winning the laudations of others. When Boromir fell to temptation and tried to take the ring from Frodo, we read of how he envisioned himself at the command of the conquering Gondorian armies. And from Faramir, we learn of Boromir's abject disappointment that their family, the line of the stewards, could never ascend the throne of Gondor. Where his brother clearly had aspirations of grandeur, Faramir does not. He loves his city and country no less than Boromir did, but unlike his older brother, Faramir understands that the part he plays is but a small one, and yet he will do his duty as best he can, fighting.
So Boromir was like, had the main character syndrome, and Boromir he had the same level of pride, but he at least acknowledged and was aware of it in the book. Okay, that's kind of funny to think about it like that.
Fighting as any good soldier ought to fight, with discipline, honor, and never forgetting the reason why he wages war. I do not love the bright sword for its sharpness, nor the arrow for its swiftness, nor the warrior for his glory. I love only that which they defend, the city of the men of Numenor, and I would have her love for her memory, her ancientry, her beauty, and her present wisdom. In that passage, and in another where Faramir describes Gandalf's visit to Minas Tirith in order to uncover the mystery of the nature of Isildur's bane, we get the sense that this ranger of Gondor is quite knowledgeable regarding the history of his people, the Númenóreans. Numenor, the island kingdom of men, was destroyed when its inhabitants pridefully attempted to sail
Trying to find B-roll showing Numenor, but weirdly couldn't find anything appropriate. Oh, okay.
to the Blessed Realm, which was not made for men to inhabit. Faramir's ancestors were among the faithful, who, led by Elendil and his sons, fled from Valinor before it was destroyed, and they settled in Middle-earth. In other words, Faramir is shown to have a knowledge of history that predisposed him to be wary of any promise of power or greatness, such as that promised by Isildur's bane. In this, as in humility, he surpasses his mightier, more ambitious brother. Now, who's to say what Faramir would have done should he have been the one to travel to Rivendell, to lay eyes on the One Ring, and then to travel alongside its bearer for week after week? As we just read, Faramir tells Frodo to keep the ring hidden lest it tempt him. Tolkien absolutely wrote Faramir as more pure-hearted and less apt to even experience temptations of power than Boromir, but certainly Faramir himself would be grateful that he did not have to resist the pull of the ring's presence on a...
Oh yeah, I forgot this scene. This is a good ass scene. It's like Boromir right here. He's got it. He's got that sucker in his hand. He could just as easily take his little glove off and just slip that shit on. Do you think if Faramir were right here where Boromir is, do you think Faramir would have like taken his glove off and just put it on? Ah, shit. I mean, probably. He probably would have did that. But this is, I think, where like the contrasting ideas or behaviors of the brothers come into play. Like Boromir was like, keep that shit away from me. Where Boromir is like, it's right here and I have to give it back. And he just literally just gives it back.
A daily basis for months on end. But Faramir did not go to Rivendell, so those musings remain merely a thought experiment. The reason that Boromir was present at the Council of Elrond is Denethor, although in the book Boromir goes more willing than in the movie. In both, however, Denethor commands that his elder son make the journey to Imladris to uncover the secret of Isildur's bane. Which leads me to my discussion of how the relationship between Faramir and his father was altered in the movie, and again, not in Faramir's favor. When Faramir arrives in Osgiliath with Frodo and Sam, he passes them off to Damrod, who will take them to Minas Tirith with a message for the steward.
Tell him, Faramir sends a mighty gift.
Which is pretty funny, since I can imagine Denethor looking down at these two halflings and thinking that Faramir had screwed up again in mistaking them for great warriors and their daggers for enormous swords. I can hear him muttering something like, "Again, my younger son demonstrates that my expectations of him can always sink lower." Anyway, throughout the two movies in which he appears, Faramir is ever eager to earn his father's favor, as evidenced by that clip I just played. Although he does arrive at a level of virtue akin to that at which he starts in the book.
I would not use the ring. Not if Minas Tirith were falling in ruin and I alone could save her.
His attitude is very much, "Look at me, Dad, I can be like Boromir too," which isn't great. Not that it doesn't make sense. Within the confines of the film alone, I have absolutely no problem with this writing. It speaks to a deep desire in all of us to be loved and appreciated. And when we are not given love and appreciation,
I understand that it's supposed to be like a father and his two sons, but when I first saw that movie, I'm like, these are just three dudes. Where's the age difference? Like, yeah, Denethor's got like some gray hair, but like Boromir and Faramir, they're not too far behind. I don't know. Did anybody else feel like get that vibe? I'm like, oh, it's a son and a brother. Meanwhile, they're both like 30 or 40. I don't know.
They are, in our view, unfairly withheld. We are wont to do drastic deeds in order to obtain them. The problem is that such reckless acts are not wise or prudent, and Faramir is supposed to be, among other things, wise and prudent. In the film, Denethor sends him and his men on a verifiable suicide mission, assaulting a fortified position already held by the forces of Mordor. In the book, he sends Faramir to Osgiliath before the orcs take it to reinforce the defenses there. A mission to which Faramir does object, as he believes he and his men would be better used defending Minas Tirith, but not one which is ridiculous and insane on the face of it. To be fair, this change makes Denethor look far worse than it does Faramir, who in both cases goes to fight a battle he believes to be ill-advised out of obedience to and respect for his father. But sending Faramir to hold the line in Osgiliath wouldn't show his desperation for Denethor's approval, as would having him charge headlong in a horde of entrenched orcs, which again, from a storytelling perspective, is perfectly legitimate. It just undermines Faramir's virtuous quality that is so important in the books. Why is his virtue so important? Well, let's first consider the most common argument against him being that way. It usually goes along the lines of, "He's too perfect, flat, and boring." In response, I would like to once again refer those along the lines of, "He's too
Book Faramir is boring, over perfect, flat, Stanley. It's one of the few things in the books I don't like. I hate borrow downs, sequins, horrid stuff. Yeah, Book Faramir is too much of a Boy Scout. He will always do the right thing, no matter what. He's too much like Superman. He's like too much Captain America. They never do the wrong thing.
perfect, flat, and boring." In response, I would like to once again refer to my very dear friend, C.S. Lewis. In a sort of ghastly simplicity, we remove the organ and demand the function. We make men...
I think the flatness of the virtuous characters comes from the fact that we never get to see the characters grow from something else, and we always see the virtuous, like morally righteous, just character. You know, everybody sees Superman, and they're like, "Oh, he's always gonna make the right decision." You know, you can appreciate the virtuousness of a character when you see them evolve and get to that state. But if a character is initially introduced as that, then it becomes like flat and boring.
Without chests and expect of them virtue and enterprise, we laugh at honor and are shocked to find traitors in our midst. We need examples like that of Faramir. We need them desperately. If we reject them as goody two-shoes Boy Scouts, we mock the very thing we should be admiring. We disregard the unseen struggles and toils that such characters have undergone to be as they appear to be in their tales. It's crucial for us to hear stories of men and women of great virtue, those who do not fall to temptation, but stand above its murky waters and refuse to be sucked in. Their stories give us something to which we can aspire.
But something else with the virtuous character, like earlier in the video, he's like, virtuous characters make great side characters and so on and so forth. I don't know if this is like a me thing. I just thought of this. If you're gonna have like a character that's like virtuous and has always been virtuous and you never saw the evolution of it, then you have to kill that character off, because it's gonna hit harder to the audience, I think, to see like a Boy Scout just die for their thing that they are, will die on the hill for, so to speak. The most virtuous character in a story should be some of the most powerful, what do you call it? They should be in like a powerful scene where they just die. Like they have to, because it's like, oh my God, he died or she died. And oh my God, we just lost that person. What are we gonna do? Everybody else is flawed. No one else can make the right decision. They were the right decision makers. Oh God, now we got a bunch of jabronis we gotta rely on. I don't know.
All such paragons of virtue are rarely the best candidates for the story's main protagonist.
Yeah.
Their role and example as advisors and dispensers of wisdom should not be discarded. As wonderful as it is to see our heroes struggle, even fall, and thus to relate to them more closely, we should have an equal desire to hear the stories of those who have already achieved the level of humility, courage, and prudence to which most heroes aspire. We should not let our desire to humanize our heroes be so overwhelming as to preclude the possibility of these much needed examples of humility and pure-heartedness. Now, none of that is to say that Faramir is a perfect man who never did anything wrong, ever.
I have done nothing wrong, ever, in my life.
I know this, and I love you.
As the thumbnail of my Boromir video declared, all good men fall. But not all men must fall prey to the same temptation. It's clear from Faramir's words that he was prepared to face Isildur's bane, that he had thought long and hard about whether he would put it to use, and had decided in the negative long before stumbling across the two hobbits in the woods of Ithilien. For this particular challenge, which comprises the vast majority of his screen and page time, Faramir had an established and resolute defense, and so he emerges victorious. The development of virtue requires dedication and constant vigilance. Clearly, this captain who served his country by patrolling its borders was rich in both. Faramir's brief role in the story of Lord of the Rings is of still more significance for this one simple reason, as it demonstrates the central theme that pervades the story. Good can and will triumph over evil. But the nature of that triumph will likely be unexpected. Peter Jackson was right in saying that the One Ring is this incredibly powerful, tempting force. He was wrong, however, in his interpretation of Faramir's refusal to take the ring. Faramir's victory over the ring was not like that of Gandalf or Galadriel, who both refused the ring after Frodo offered it to them. Faramir is, after all, only a man, not a primordial Maya, nor an immortal elf with several millennia's worth of wisdom and foresight. He could only triumph over
what
the
did he
ring.
put it there?
He could only triumph for an immortal elf with several millennia's worth of wisdom and
Man, it's too bad no one has made a show about Galadriel's history. Was that like, is that like a spit on the Rings of Power? I still haven't seen Rings of Power 1 or 2. I saw like the first episode and I fell asleep. I was like, that's not for me.
foresight. He could only triumph over the ring by refusing to play its game, by telling Frodo to keep it hidden, by banishing all thoughts of it from his mind before they had the slightest chance to take root. His victory is won not through his strength of will, but rather through his humility, the quality of which is, of course, the very highest.
Hey
Dang.
guys, welcome back.
Oh, no. Dang. This was a good ass video, dude. That was so cool. I didn't know, I didn't know like book Faramir and movie Faramir were so different. I mean, they weren't too much different, but they were kind of different. And I think you broke it down perfectly, dude. Virtue is not boring. I mean, like I said, if you don't get to see the character evolve to become virtuous, then a virtue becomes boring because you just have a Boy Scout. I mean, that's just my 2 cents. I mean, probably with all the movies and media and bullshit that I've seen, there's probably some instances of me contradicting myself or whatever, but I don't know. That's just my 2 cents right there. But yeah, dude, overall, fucking badass video, and yeah, I like it. I hope you make more, and can't wait to see what's next. But other than that, that's pretty much it for me. I'll catch you guys on the next one, right? Later.